Hello there, welcome gentlemen, my name is Boulton and welcome to this new step-by-step video build of building Airfix's 1/48 scale Boulton Pull Defiant Mark 1. Really cool kit by Airfix. I do like it. It does lack a little bit of detail, which we will address in this step-by-step, and we're going to film it as an intermediate level build, so we won't go into all the basic stuff and we won't kind of cover advanced stuff ish with this build. Nice clean build. So I just want to get started with this, and the part where I want to get started is the detail. So I'll just quickly show you what I mean by the detail. If we bring you in closely, you know, the surface detail is kind of lacking detail. Very sort of basic, couple of recessed panel lines, very few recessed rivets. We're going to go off and address that first right now. So let's get this cut off the sprue and get cracking. So to enhance this detail, we're going to get started with some rescribing of the recessed panel lines, because as you can see, quite a big nothing going on just there. I've looked at a couple of reference photos and it looks like there's a couple more recessed panel lines in there than what they put on. Despair, right, really cool, sort of like not masking tape but like scribing tape, so to speak. Really cool. I've just cut off a piece here, and what I'm going to do is start this at a, you know, sort of like a nice point that I can reference on the opposite side. I'm going to pinch one end and then pull the opposite end to where I want it to end, so we get what should be a nice straight line all the way along there. And we've now got you know, a nice guide for our rescribing. You'll also notice what's cool about this, we've got all these dots and lines. I mean, that's going to be cool for anything like doing recessed rivets if you wanted to do them that way. So again, Despair, they do, I'm kind of trying out their stuff now. I mean, Tamiya is what I always use, but Despair has these scribers themselves are sort of slightly different. We're going to just try using this. So with our guide, we should be able to a bit more sort of freehand, but up to our tape, which is just thick enough for us to just carefully, slowly run along that tape. And as you could see, there was like little curls of plastic coming off. I'll get you in closer, maybe you could see with the second pass. And it's not about sort of being able to go off and, you know, dig down really deep and really hard and get your line all nicely scribed in the first pass, right? You know, the more pressure you put down, the more you're probably likely to slip, and then you got to correct that and everything. So you know, keep it nice, light. And I'm just turning it and going the other way now, just to, you know, just make sure we get it all right. And you'll just notice these curly whirly bits of plastic begin to come off, and that's what you want to see. So I don't know, maybe another pass at that. Let's have a little feel before we remove the tape. That is kind of feeling good now. Hopefully you can see, oh sorry, went off camera a bit, those bits of curly whirlies, and we should be able to remove this and we can just feel, and hopefully you can see there's that nice sort of rescribing there. Maybe if I just quickly give it a sand, right, it'll go into the recessed panel line and you'll be able to see the line a bit better on camera. I'll just brush that away, you could just see that line that little bit better. So yeah, nice quick way of doing it. And I'm just going to go, you could also use the templates as well. Just say we kind of lay this down. This is, you know, a little bit more trickier because you could sort of like slip, right? But it's the same sort of principle. You know, you hold it in position and you scribe, but you could slip, as well as I do like the tape. The tape's kind of like a nice guide in the sense that when we place this down, we can sort of see where the line's going to go. So say we could line it up with that one and just make sure we're not sort of, you know, a bit half cocked, you know, that we're kind of nice and parallel. You can sort of step back and see that. So I do like the tape in that sense for putting in brand new recessed panel lines. So I'm going to go off and throw in a load more. Here is the rescribing that we've just done there. Hopefully you like it. Pretty easy, pretty simple, just adds that bit more detail. Now we've got this tool here, but I think it's RB or something Productions. You can get, I think AK and Ammo do them now, and it's just a little wheel with little spikes on it, and we can apply our rivets to it. Now when using this, what I like to do is find the corner and try and make sure one of those spikes goes in that corner, right? So we're kind of looking at this angle, right? Press that in, hold, and then rotate it to a nice bird's eye view where you can, you know, close one eye, mark one eyeball, and then sort of follow that recessed panel line and keep the distance of the actual wheel the same distance with the recessed panel line. And then when we get to the end, tilt it again and just make sure that last spike ends, whoops, and I slipped there, but basically make sure that ends nicely in the corner. Now I did slip there, so I'm going to come in with a sewing needle, right, and I'm just going to finish that off in the corner. Now with this kind of stuff, you've also got to sort of kind of remember that the pressure you apply makes it deeper and a bigger recess rivet. You know, so for along, say, these recessed panel lines, I want to apply a nice amount of pressure to kind of make them a little bit bigger, right? But right, when I come to, say, doing inside the panel line, so maybe, you know, a bit of a checkered pattern going on in here, I'll probably apply a lighter pressure so it's not so pronounced and in your face kind of thing when we put a wash in later on. So just a quick one again, right? Find that corner, look at it at an angle, then bring it to the bird's eye view, right, and keep your wheel and the recessed panel line at the same distance. Try and apply the same pressure all the way along, get to the end where the corner is, rotate again so you can see where that final tooth goes into the corner of that recessed panel line, right? So with that done all the way around, what you're going to feel is this light sort of roughness around. That's where the spikes have gone in and it's made a little hole, but it's pushed the plastic up. So we want to kind of remove that. So I have an 800 grit Despair sanding sponge here, and what I'm going to do is just lightly, you know, I don't want to apply too much pressure, I don't want to be removing loads of plastic and detail and stuff, right? I just want to sort of lightly remove that kind of raised bit of plastic, smooth it off. I'm just smoothing that off, and you'll actually kind of like see your work a bit more better now, and you can just feel that, and that's all nicely gone. And as I say, you know, those rivets start to show up more because you've got a bit of sanding dust going in there. Again, we've got sanding dust in there. We don't want that to stay, because when we spray on top of that, it's going to act like a filler. So we do have, again, Despair does these lovely sort of cleaning brushes. We've got the big one, and then we've got a smaller one, and we can, you know, brush that out. Right, kind of go all the way around, brush it all out. Right, and that all should be all nice and good and should take a wash, you know, fairly nicely. On this opposite side, I've already done a load of recessed rivets and the panel lines. Right, a bit hard to see. I have kind of even looked at some reference photos, and we've got like some 2Z patterns going on there. That kind of looks cool. Right, a little bit of a tip as well, right? If we bring these together, I mean, obviously, right, we're gonna want some recess rivets and recessed panel lines sort of going over here. Now this is a join line. I know I'm going to go off, fill, sand that join line, so better to just go off and kind of do your new scribing detail after it's been, you know, obviously glued, filled and sanded, because you're just going to end up redoing it. So I am leaving that bit until that is all nicely together. Well, we've just gone off and, you know, primed up our model and give it a base coat, which we have used XF71 for our interior green color. Now, our seat belts are non-existent on this Airfix kit, so I want to just spice it up with a bit of that because we haven't got a pilot either. Some good 1mm masking tape, or you could cut it to length if you haven't got a 1mm. What we're going to do is begin to just put a piece of this down, and with a blade we can sort of cut it. And what we're going to do is cut our masking tape up into lots of shapes. So let's try and bring you in. All right, what we want to do here is maybe just make a nice straight cut to start with. All right, and then we sort of kind of try and guesstimate a bit of a length with our piece here as well. And I'm kind of guessing maybe that would be around about our length. I suppose it doesn't have to be super duper sort of accurate. I think we can trim off a little bit, so maybe a little bit longer than you want. So with these in place now, what we're going to do is kind of get we kind of want to make these sort of metal sort of ends to it. So I'm just going to cut off a very tiny piece right off of here, right, and because it's masking tape it'll stick on. So that little stick on there has kind of just made that little bit of a raise to represent that, and we can paint that. I think it's like a brass kind of color, right? So we've got that on there. There is also this little bit as well, which I'm going to try and just stab some holes in it, because it seems to have these sort of circular grommet looking things going on there. So if I just stab that as well, so we can sort of add again a bit more shape to this, right? And with a sewing needle we can just really nicely whack a couple of them in there, like so. Probably hard to see how tiny we're getting, right? So if we just place that down and bring our other piece up as well, and what we want to do is sort of stick this on top, but we can have a bit of play with this, so it doesn't have to be like, you know, totally and utterly lined up. So maybe slightly off, just to kind of show that a little bit. Right, so as you can see, that little bit of just stabbing some holes and putting a little bit of masking tape here and there, we've kind of got a bit of a seat belt going on here, which is gonna go somewhere about here. And as I say, like, better to leave this longer than shorter, so, you know, somewhere around about there. And we can cut it, because this is where it comes in from, cut it about there, do two of them so it's a bit of a V shape, and then we can work on the other bits. A little bit of micro crystal clear would probably come in handy. Hopefully, as you can see, all I've done is just what I've shown you, just sort of like cutting and poking little holes in there. Kind of got some sort of nice effective seat belts in there for just a bit of your own scratch building. But as you can see, the masking tape doesn't quite stick so brilliantly, so just a little bit of this micro crystal clear just in places. Right, if we can get you to focus, there we go, sort of maybe underneath that a little bit, turn around our cocktail stick and just sort of maybe hold that into position for a bit. Maybe a little cotton wool bud, just to clean up any sort of oozed out bits of that micro crystal clear. Right, and we could sort of go around those areas where it's sort of just kind of peeled up a bit. But there we go, some nice scratch build seat belts. Another cool little product that I'm really starting to get into is these real color markers, or any kind of sort of like paintbrush kind of markers that are acrylic based, right? These are really cool that I'm finding that if you use them on, say, cockpit dials and all this kind of stuff, they really do work quite effectively. You might think they've got quite a big brush on there, but you really can, because it's like a lot of raised stuff in cockpits. It's like you really can get those tiny little dials and those little buttons, right, and just kind of quite easily get all your little bits painted. And I think the big thing for me when painting these is, if you've got like a small brush for, you know, when you use your paintbrush, I find the problem is you're constantly stopping and starting because your brush just gets dry very quick. But with these, the flow is just constant and constant. So doing lots and lots of little buttons, you know, is actually not bad. It's sort of very quick and efficient to be able to just paint loads and not have to keep starting and rehydrating your brush, right? So as you can see, we're just sort of painting them. So as I say, doing things like the dials and stuff, like, because a lot of things are raised, although these brushes might seem quite big, it's actually not as hard as you think to paint them on. I'm just going to use deck tan here, right, for things like some buttons and stuff. I normally use white, but like I'm kind of like switching to like lighter greys. But like, as you can see, you can get these painted, and what I just love is that you don't have to stop, right? It will just keep on flowing, which is what makes them my sort of my new favorite way of doing painting all these dolls and all these bits and bobs within cockpits. So there is our basic bit of painting going on there, just our main base colors, and we painted in all the dials and everything like that. So all we need to do now is go off and put a gloss coat on this, protecting it ready for the weathering stage. Now that is sadly the end of part 1. Part 2 will be up probably like a week or two on the Genesis Models website, and this is step by step, so we're going to teach you everything about building a model. But please do go to Genesis Models website and get yourself an account over there and watch all this lovely lot content of building professional models to a professional level. So hopefully you've enjoyed that, and hopefully we'll see you in episode 2. But as always, until next time, my name's Boy Waldron, the Genesis Models, and I'll catch you later.